morning to all of you joining us for To The Point this morning. It is Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV channel 7, 11, and 20. Good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9, and the folks joining us on Party Grenada and Go To Fet Facebook pages. Always a pleasure to have you. We apologize for the late start, just having a bit of a technical difficulties this morning, but we got that sorted out and we are able to facilitate and welcome our guest this morning. Joining me virtually is former deputy political leader, former finance minister of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Nazim Burke. Good morning, Mr. Burke, and thank you for joining us. It's been a while.
Good morning to you, Blossom, and good morning to all of your viewers and listeners, wherever they are. It has been a while, but I don't blame myself for that.
Ooh, I see what you did there. Happy to have you, and I hope that you're staying safe during these COVID times.
We are doing our best in the face of all the challenges. Thank you so much.
All right, so let's get into it.
I wish the same for you, I must say.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm trying my best as well.
Yes.
So this morning, Mr. Burke, we of course were talking COVID-19. That's what most conversations have been about recently as we go through this wave of the global health pandemic. And this morning, I want to really look at the economic side of things and how COVID is affecting Grenada, probably regionally, internationally as well, and bouncing back hopefully sooner rather than later. So first of all, overall, your thoughts on the economic hit that COVID-19 has brought for Grenada, the rest of the Caribbean, and the rest of the world?
Well, there's no question that the COVID has done a major economic shock to the world economy globally and to the Caribbean, and including Grenada. A study that was done by the Inter-American Development Bank suggests that on average, the countries in the Caribbean region experience about a 16% decline in their economies. Grenada appeared to have been a little bit less than that, about 13.5% decline. But nonetheless, 13.5% decline in the economy is a major shock, and it has affected all aspects of economic activity. The St. George's University, which accounts for roughly 21 to 22% of the Grenadian economy, basically ground to a halt. So you can see what is happening there. Then, of course, tourism, which is the other major sector of the economy. Tourism actually accounts for about 44% of all the people employed in the Grenadian economy, according to world statistics. And tourism also ground to a halt. Grenada, of course, is one of the countries with the highest dependency on tourism anywhere in the Caribbean and anywhere in the world. Of the 20 most dependent economies in the world, most tourism-dependent economies in the world, 9 of them are in the Caribbean. And of the most dependent economies in the Caribbean, Grenada has the highest, what is called tourism dependency index, which is 58%, which means that Grenada is dependent for its survival to the extent of 58% as compared to other countries. So that tourism took a major hit. Construction took a major hit because, of course, as you know, much of the construction activity had to grind to a halt. The small businesses, whether we're talking of retail businesses or service providers, I'm thinking of the barbers, the hairdressers, the people who make their livelihood as well, just from selling food or selling items. Small business people, small proprietors, sole proprietors, all of these persons who depended on, the hustle and bustle of Grenadian activity to make a living, all of this came to a halt. In fact, the government, by its own accounts, reported that by June of last year, with the crisis having broken in March, by June of last year, Grenada had experienced a drop in employment of about 14,000 persons. In other words, about 14,000 people had been placed on the breadline by June of last year. And that, according to the government statistics, pushed the unemployment rate up to 28.4%. So, and nothing has changed, nothing has improved significantly since that time. So you realize that we are in a very difficult situation. Manufacturing is down, tourism is down, agriculture has been taking a hit. In 2019, they said there was a 7% decline in agriculture, and it was projected that there would have been a 14% decline in 2020. We don't know exactly what the numbers are for 2021, but again, we do not anticipate any significant spike or significant increase. So all of the major sectors of the economy would have taken a fundamental hit as a result of the COVID. And this has placed us in a very, very challenging situation. So quite apart from the situation relating to health and wellness, yes, the deaths and the risks that have been undertaken, that have been experienced, I think we're also dealing with a major economic blow. I jumped, I must say, Blossom, I jumped immediately to answer your question, but I want to be excused for not first addressing first things first, which is to take the opportunity to extend our very deepest sympathies to all those persons who have lost their loved ones in this particular crisis. It has been a very difficult situation for many, many families, not having the opportunity to even find, the most normal, the most expected, the most desirable way to part with their loved ones. It must be a great challenge, and we want to express our deepest sympathies to all of those persons. We must also extend on empathize with all of the people who have suffered, who have fallen victim to the virus. The numbers are showing that we are now gone past 5,000 cases in Grenada. And this, of course, tells us something. In a population of 100,000 people, more or less, that's a very high infection rate compared to other countries. And I think we really have to give thanks to the Almighty nonetheless, that in spite of the wave that we have experienced, especially in the last month or so, all in all, the numbers have not been devastating for as far as deaths are concerned. So my sympathies to those who have suffered have suffered loss. My empathy with those who have fallen victim to the virus. And of course, we must take the opportunity, Blossom, to also express our deepest thanks, which all of those who have had the opportunity to do so on public media, to thank the frontline workers, the nurses, the doctors, the police officers, the transportation people who are moving them back and forth, the volunteers who are out there on the lines on Saturday and Sunday during this lockdown period, all finding ways to touch the lives of other people. Families who have given to others, who have simply provided, whether it's food or toiletries or supplies, families who are able to go and pick up something in the shop for those who cannot get out, families who are just given good words of solace, words of consolation, words of encouragement, families who are giving advice to others about how to treat and care for themselves in this very difficult period. I think we really have to say thanks to everybody, and forgive me for jumping ahead of that point.
No, that's okay.
To it.
Looking at how quickly economies around the world fell, how quickly they were affected, were you surprised at how it unfolded economically?
Yes, because we were not expecting this pandemic at the local level. I mean, there were those who, at the senior global policy levels, who understood that this was a looming risk, something that can happen. Several policymakers spoke about it. Several leaders spoke about it. Some of the larger, more developed countries, including the United States, had actually begun putting systems in place. I remember President Obama had set up a special task force within the White House itself to prepare for this eventuality and possibility. So although at the global level, several persons recognized that this was a looming risk. I think at the more local level and at the level of some of the smaller countries in the world, we really did not see this coming. And so it was indeed a great shock when, in March, we are told, listen, this thing has spread. It has hit China. It has spread to some of the other countries. Spain is affected. Italy is affected. New York is affected. South Korea is affected. Some of the other Asian countries are affected, and that we are going to have to close our economies down. So this was a big shock to everybody. And of course, where health and the risk of death is facing you, livelihood takes second place where life is concerned. So we were shocked by it.
Okay, so that has gone. We now need to continue thinking of ways to come back, bouncing back, moving ahead from this. What would be your top recommendation to the powers that be, to the current administration, to help Grenada gets back on its economic footing?
The very first recommendation is perhaps not an economic one, but a political one. And what I mean is, the first responsibility of our leaders at this particular point in time is to appreciate the moment, to be able to realize what exactly we are facing in every moment that we are here. What I'm thinking of, is this. I saw Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados do what I consider one of the seminal addresses to the United Nations. She reminded me of the late Maurice Bishop as I listened to her talking about the needs of the smaller nations, the less developed countries, the needs of the global economy and global society as she spoke about the issues. As she presented there, I think those of us in the Caribbean were proud by what she did. And then last night, I saw our Minister of Foreign Affairs doing a presentation to the United Nations, in the same forum, talking to the same global community, the same audience, and speaking about where we are and what is needed. And I could not help but compare the two presentations. Now, I mean no injustice to Minister Joseph, he has a different experience and we are the products of our experiences. But the thought that came to my mind as I watched him was this. Here was a great moment, a great opportunity for our Caribbean leaders, including our Prime Minister, to be on that stage together with Mia Mottley, speaking on behalf of the Caribbean, making collective demands, having the collective voices heard on the issues that she was raising, so that you don't have one voice like a lone soldier, a lone warrior in the wilderness, but you have many voices making the same call to the global community to address some of the fundamental issues that she identified, which remain unaddressed and have remained unaddressed for such a long time. That struck me, and I felt at the time that the Prime Minister should have been there together with Mia Mottley and others. So the second thing that crossed my mind on that occasion was that here was a great opportunity for our Prime Minister to get to the United Nations, where all of the world leaders are going to be. Yes, this is the United Nations General Assembly, where all of the speakers, all of the world leaders tend to be there. They're there to speak, to address the problems of the world. And you would get a chance in one forum without having to travel twice or three or four or five times, without having to run the risk of travel, without having to leave your country more than once, without having to pay the costs of travel and face the risks of travel at this time. You would see in that one space the Prime Minister, the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of the UK, the Chancellor of Germany, and all of these persons there together. What it would have done was provided an opportunity to meet with several of these leaders and to make special, ask for an audience and to make special quiet requests on behalf of the government and on behalf of the people of Grenada, to my mind, the Prime Minister missed a glorious, a great opportunity to do just that, you see? And in a way, that is what vision is. What is vision? Vision is really the ability, the capacity to spot opportunities where your average person cannot see them, yeah? That's really the essence of the heart and soul of vision. It is the ability to see opportunities, to spot opportunities when your average mind can't see them, and then to move to take advantage of it. So sometimes the visionary sees things 5 years down the road, possibilities 5 years down the road, and the average person just cannot appreciate what they're saying. And leaders, one of the characteristics of a great leader is vision, to have that ability to spot opportunities. And I think our Prime Minister missed a fundamental opportunity there, to be there, not because we question the competence or the ability of Minister Joseph, but because as Prime Minister and leader of the nation, he carries much more political stature, much more political weight, and would have had a greater impact, both as speaking as the most seasoned Prime Minister of the region. He's been there for 4 terms, a Prime Minister for 20-something years, using his presence and his stature together with a less experienced Prime Minister, but a great champion, Mia Mottley, and calling on the others to come with them, come with us, and be at the UN to address this opportunity and to face the challenges that we're facing, whether we are talking about climate change, or we are talking about some of the natural disasters, or we're talking about the supply and availability of vaccines, or we're talking about some of the other fundamental threats that our countries face and that the world faces, yeah? Whether we're talking about the need for these countries to provide climate financing to address some of the threats that we're facing, whether it's coastal erosion or water rises, sea level rises, or whatever the problem is. To my mind, Blossom, this is the first message I would give to our powers that be. Appreciate the moment. Appreciate the moment and take advantage of the moment. Because if you're missing the opportunities, then you would never be able to get our country out of the present situation in which we find ourselves. So this is not an economic issue, but largely a political one that could have had and that will have long-term economic consequences for our country.
So had the Prime Minister been the attendee at the conference, how do you think his narrative would have differed to Minister Joseph?
Well, as I listen to Minister Joseph, and again, I mean no disrespect or injustice to the minister, but as I listen to the minister, the thought that came to my mind is that the minister could easily have made this address in the Parliament of Grenada during the budget debate, and I would not have known the difference. Yeah, in other words, if I did not know that he was speaking at the UN, and I had simply walked into the room and watched this television program, I would have assumed, I think fairly so, that this was a budget debate, that this was his contribution to the national budget discussion. And that is not what you need at that level, at this time, you see. There may be times when Grenada has to do that. That kind of conversation may happen while you're abroad, but that is where you're painting the picture to an individual leader to try to get them to appreciate the magnitude of the hit that you've taken, yeah? And you say, listen, this is what we have been confronted with. This is what this thing has meant to us. These are how many jobs we have lost. This is the unemployment situation. We depend heavily on tourism. We depend heavily on the Citizenship Economic Program. This is what it has meant for our revenues there. So you present a picture to say, listen, we need help in order to get out of this difficulty in which we find ourselves. So I mean no injustice to the minister, but I think that this was a terribly missed opportunity.
And you just mentioned they could have used the opportunities to say we need help to get out of this situation. What help do you need? How much help do we need financially?
Well, I mean, I'm not in the driver's seat, so I can't quantify the scope of the help. Yeah?
Understood.
And yes, and but I will say this. There is no doubt, as I mentioned earlier, that Grenada's economy has taken a serious hit. We know that our country is not only facing COVID and the fallout that we spoke about in relation to COVID, but given our location in the world, in the Caribbean, where we are, we are faced with associated risks of volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, hurricanes, flash floods, landslides, the risk of rising sea levels, all of these challenges, many of which flow directly from the incidence of climate change. Yes, all of these challenges are to be combined with COVID to see the magnitude of the threat that we are facing as a nation. All of these events bring catastrophic loss of life, substantial damage to property, including destruction of human settlements, housing, loss of economic livelihoods, and massive reductions in our production and in our productivity. Yes, given our small size, Blossom, and there's no magic to this, the consequences of these events are far greater for us than is the case for a larger country. If something happens in, let's say Louisiana, New Orleans or somewhere, a hurricane hits, it does major damage. What happens? The national emergency authorities in the United States will move supplies and equipment, will move personnel from California to that location, from New York to that location. Because of the size of the country and the resources that they have available to them, the impact on the global, on the overall economy, the national economy, will not be as significant. And the opportunity for recovery, for rebuilding, resilience, all of these things will be far greater. When we compare that with a small country like Grenada, when something hits, everybody gets hit. When a hurricane strikes or an earthquake strikes, like in St. Vincent, or a volcano strikes, the whole country is affected by it, given our small size. And therefore, the threat that we face today as countries are far, far greater than just what COVID has done, and far, far greater than what some of the major and larger economies of the world are experiencing. Every year, we find ourselves having to rebuild after some level of destruction, whether it's a flood or a hurricane or some other problem. But what we are doing is essentially building or rebuilding rather than building on the accomplishments of the year before. And this economic model that we have found ourselves in, with this heavy reliance on tourism, this heavy reliance on citizenship by investment, for capital expansion, and for job creation, and for government revenues. This dependency really cannot continue. This model does not work because, as you know, a lot of these activities, economic activities, are largely seasonal in nature. We enjoy what happens in tourism between October and April, more or less. Outside of that, a lot of people are struggling. And so, given the seasonal problems, given the seasonal nature of the economy, whenever shocks happen in the economies from which we depend on for tourists, we feel the pressure here. As some of our former leaders used to say, when America sneezes, we catch pneumonia, because it usually means that if there's an economic impact in the United States, we are going to feel it here, given the way that we are dependent on these countries. Our dependence, our attention to agriculture and related economic activities has never been given that primary role that it deserves. And when I say never, I'm talking of the last 40 to 50 years, has not been given. Since the late 60s, we began to see some trends, the downward trend at the late 60s, the revolution tried to bolster that. But there has been a lot of challenges for us in agriculture and the related industries. And because the government cannot see or has not seen the critical need not to relegate the sector to a secondary role, it means that revenues are not given to it. The development of the sector itself and the related industries is left largely to the individual initiative. A man decide, well, you know what, I'm going to plant some tomatoes. I think tomatoes selling. I will sell some tomatoes, yeah? And nobody is really planning how we do things. Which part of the country, for example, does best with callaloo? Yeah? How do we make fields of callaloo and ensure that we have callaloo year-round? Where are the rains heaviest? Where are the soils best for particular products? All of these things need to be studied and needs to be worked on in a very serious and determined way. And we have not done so. So the result is that our revenue base is very limited, and therefore our ability to invest and to create jobs for the longer term is really constrained. What that means for us is that we find ourselves borrowing these large sums of money from private investors across the globe at high, impossible rates of interest, and cannot meet these payments as we go. And whatever little monies we earn, most of it has to go. Instead of helping to invest and to create jobs and to expand the capital base of the country and the economic base of the country, we find ourselves having to use the majority of it, having to pay debts. So that model, I'm saying, Blossom, really cannot work for us. And this really then is the opportunity for us to rethink and reset. We need to do an economic reset, in a manner of speaking, you know. The challenge I think that we are facing right now is how to stabilize, first of all, how to stabilize first and stimulate economic growth, boost employment, because we heard the numbers from Minister Joseph, reduce the vulnerability that so many of our people are facing at this time. I watched a young lady from, I think, St. Andrew the other night, talking about her plight. This is a hairdresser, somebody in the beauty industry, who, because of the COVID, she has to lock down, especially on the weekends when other people can come, she has to lock down. Quite understandably, the health authorities are saying, listen, there's a risk that you're going to spread this thing if you open up. And she's saying, well, how do I manage? How do I pay my bills? How do I provide? I think she said she had a daughter. How do you cope when these things are, or when you're faced with these challenges? And that's where the vision of the government comes in. And that's where economic support comes in to cushion the period. You might say to the person, listen, we can't do all for you, but let's agree that for the next month, we will pay your bills. So that if you're closing down, the revenues that you would have made, we will provide you with that for the next month, just to break the cycle of the spike and to see how best we can bring it under control. So, we recognize the government has limited finances, limited funding, and that's why I come back to the point of the need to be aggressively out there looking for help and looking for support and not staying in the background. But nonetheless, some things have to be done to ensure that, too many of our people do not fall through the cracks, that the middle income people especially do not descend into abject poverty, and in so doing, lay the foundation for a sustainable fiscal situation. That is really the challenge that we face, We have to, our urgent priorities, I would say, is to restore hope and to support economic activity, develop the confidence in our people to push ahead with efforts to get their livelihoods back. The government, of course, has to find ways to modernize the economy and to transform the economy to meet the demands of the new period. Yes, the Imani played a role. Yes, the health wardens played a role. Yes, the traffic wardens played a role. Yes, some of these wardens played an important role and they were provided with some source of income. But the reality is the public service, in as much as they do a tremendous amount of work and play such a crucial role, their impact in terms of economic expansion is somewhat consequential. What I mean is they are not there producing pens or growing bananas and so on. I'm not minimizing their role. Without them, we can't make it. Let's be clear. Without a good public service, the government will never be able to provide the services that businesses need. in order to get the confidence and have an environment in which people feel that they can invest and create jobs and employ people and so on. So I'm not underplaying that. I'm just saying that there are some activities that provide direct impact on our economy in terms of job creation and in terms of employment and economic activity. And there are others that provide a supporting role, including the public service, including the traffic wardens, including the police services, including those kinds of public service providers. Their roles are critical, but we also need to find ways to produce more and to improve on our productivity. So these things are crucial. These are the challenges that we face.
Let's take a break, Mr. Burke, and then we're going to come back inside with some more. I know our viewers and listeners have questions for Mr. Burke. The phone has been ringing since the program started, but we're going to take a break first and then come back with more. This is To The Point on Classic and GBN.
Prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
Feel good tax.
Remember, if you have flu symptoms, do the right thing and stay at home to avoid giving it to others. Remember, you can be infectious up to a week after developing symptoms, so rest up and take it easy.
Welcome back to The Point, speaking with former Finance Minister Nazim Burke this morning. Let us open the phone lines. I'm thinking, okay, let's go to the phone lines and social media for the viewers and listeners who may have comments, questions, queries, concerns. The landline number, 435-2041. The WhatsApp number, it's also 435-2041. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp. And you can continue to post your comments and questions on Facebook and YouTube. Good morning, caller.
Good morning to you, Blossom, and good morning to the most handsome gentleman in Grenada, Mr. Nazim V. Burke. Welcome to GBN. Indeed, I'm happy to see you. You're a breath of fresh air. Coincidentally, you and Blossom are wearing the same colors. I hope you all didn't plan that. I want to say thank you for gracing us with your presence and continuing to inform and to educate us. And I do believe that the NDC, it's time for us to stand up and defend what we have with all that we have. You're the best person Grenada could ever want. now and ever. And it is, when I say defend, I mean defend. And I believe that we really didn't defend when all the lies were spread. It came in just at the time and to Grenada, just as how they believe the oil and gas situation, all of the lies. And I do hope they pay you 45 houses they say you had and you don't have it. Make sure you get the money so we could use it to campaign. Grenville and the vegetable lady is saying, have a blessed day, stay safe, and I do hope you take the vaccine because I love you.
Thank you very much, caller.
Blossom, that lady is my absolute sweetheart.
I realize.
I can't help myself when I see her. She's such a sweet lady. Thank you very much, my dear lady. God bless you. And I wish you and your family all of the very best. I welcome the opportunity that the GBN has given me this morning to share my thoughts at this very critical time on these very critical issues. You know, not so much to beat up on anybody, but to realize and to acknowledge that we are facing a national challenge. We are facing a national situation that is impacting on everybody and will continue to impact on everybody. You know, one of the things I was raising with a friend of mine the night before last, just chatting generally, you know, and he's saying to me, well, you know, you should get back into the politics and, you know, I'd like to see you at the helm and blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying to him, I said, listen, whoever takes this country now in the aftermath of COVID to lead it and to try to restore the economy and the society is going to have a challenge of their life. You know, this is not just another economic recession. This is not 2010. This is a problem in which the economy has sunk by, as we said earlier, perhaps more than 14%, because as early as June of last year, we heard what the numbers were. The situation has not improved. A lot of people are hurting. A lot of people are out of work, quite apart from the health and life and health issues, that people are feeling very insecure about the economic situation and how they're going to move from here. And it's going to require a government with leadership, with vision, with sincerity to talk to the people and let them know where we are. What are some of the challenges? Don't mislead them. Don't lie to them. Don't be insincere and be transparent. It's going to require honesty at the political level and at the leadership level, that you must have the courage to say, listen, we can't do this now, right? We would like to, but we can't do this now. Look, we're planning to get into an agreement with X or Y. If we get into this agreement, this is what it's going to mean. There would be good things and bad things in every situation, but we see the positives as outweighing the negatives. And let's give it a shot together. If we were to get the people on side with us as leaders, this country will achieve so much more, and there will be no stopping us. So thank you. I as I said before on this program, and I say again, I am not trying to force myself on anybody. My view was I stepped away from politics because I felt, you know, let's give the party a chance to find somebody, choose somebody else, and let the people come to their own conclusions. You know, they will realize, I believe, that I am not Grenada's problem. I never was Grenada's problem. I am not Grenada's problem. All I was trying to do was to be a part of the solution. And I remain committed to the country. I will assist in whatever way I can. I feel a sense of duty to share my thoughts on these important issues at this time.
Something you just said, that at the next elections, which are due, 2023, anybody who takes over the country at this time, it will be an uphill task. In the next election, if it's not Dr. Mitchell and the NNP, anybody else, it would be more or less a fresh person coming into this, somebody that's quote-unquote green. What would be a pivotal area for them to focus on to take over the country at this time, bouncing back from COVID-19 and all the other issues that we may have, including the unemployment issue and so on and so forth? What would be pivotal for them to keep in mind? And even Dr. Mitchell as well, even a seasoned politician, prime minister, could use a tip or two sometimes.
Well, there are a couple of areas which I believe the country has our best potential lie in certain areas, yeah? And we have to recognize those and try to exploit them, try to take advantage of them, try to mobilize our people around exploiting and extracting the opportunities that lie within these areas. Yes, we have to ask the international community for help, but we cannot be a nation of beggars. We can't just go around begging, because especially in the wake of the COVID crisis, countries are themselves worried about ensuring that they have for their rainy day. And many of the citizens of some of these developed economies that we are looking to for help, they too are very concerned about the extent to which their governments are giving away the tax money, in a manner of speaking, while they themselves do not have some of the things that they need for themselves. So there is some resentment among the populace about giving away. And we too, as a nation, even for our own pride, we don't just want to be begging, yeah? So we have to identify the areas that have potential for us and go after them with all of our energies, yeah? And one of them is how we use our land, because I believe that we still are not making the best use of our land. We have limited land space. Grenada is only 89,000 acres of land. We can't just be doing things where people are going and setting up stuff, creating all kinds of, uses for land that have not been planned. It's purely accidental. You're driving into a nice neighborhood where people went and bought a property because they figure, well, this is a nice residential area. And then the next month or two, you pass and you see 7 or 8 cars, old cars, on the side of the road, a tractor up in the space, and you have to wait, So it really needs zoning. We need zoning. And this is something that we've been saying for a long time. Decide how we're going to use the little land that we have. There's a need for some kind of spatial planning and to provide, especially to protect our ecosystems, the coastal areas, the risk of sea level rises, protecting the mangroves, all of these things require how are we going to best use the land? I think that is very important. And then, as I said earlier when I spoke on agriculture, begin to realize that food security, nutrition security must play a central role in the country's sustenance and in the country's self-reliance, yeah? And begin to put more resources to agriculture. It cannot be that the government is putting the same amount of money on the debushing program that it is putting on agriculture. Something is wrong with that, Blossom. Again, it's not just a matter of blaming. I'm just saying, listen, it must be clear to all concerned that debushing will not bring the returns that agriculture will bring, both in terms of production, in terms of productivity, in terms of employment, sustainable long-term employment, in terms of, the food security, in terms of the nutrition security, in terms of the possibilities for spin-off economic activities, not just the actual primary state of agriculture, but the secondary agro-processing and related industries that can flow from it. Money must go into agriculture. So I believe that is important, and that is something which the government must give priority to going forward. Whoever takes over the country, some new and an urgent priority must be given to the agricultural sector. I also believe, Blossom, that we are not making the best use of our oceans. The ocean is a source of food. We can do things to promote the use of the ocean and to get food from the ocean, to promote aquaculture, making use of our wetlands, our seas, our freshwater areas to replenish our fish stock, doing some fish farming where we can, lobster farming, shrimp farming. These are things that have been tried and tested, and these are areas where Grenada has the potential, I believe, to make some things happen. We must protect our marine, we must identify and designate our marine protected areas. That too is very important. We must protect our coral. We must uphold viable quotas with things like shrimp and lobsters, not just say it, but do it. It cannot be that we approach this in a lawless way, that you say you have quotas, but any time of the year, people are going out and fishing and in a sense, depleting the very stock that we will depend on down the road. We must deal with some of the invasive species that we are facing. We must avoid overfishing. All of these are matters which I believe are important. We must provide the kind of support that our fisher folk would need to go if it is necessary, to provide some support by way of duty concessions, by way of technology support. The government has to, by way of export facilities, storage capacity, freezer capacity, all of these are issues that the government is going to have to say, we are now going to make this our priority. So land use is going to be important. Agriculture is going to be important. Our use of the oceans are going to be important. These are things which I believe must be given urgent priority. We are not a large manufacturing country. We are not going to be able to do a lot of large-scale manufacturing. But if we get the agriculture going, the related industries, the agro-industries will do well. People are crying out for, organic products and special quality products all over the world. And good things sell. People are prepared to pay for good quality stuff. And I think we need to find a way to try and make that happen.
All right. Let me take this caller. They've been on hold for a little while. Good morning, caller.
Good morning again, Blossom. I'm sorry, but I have a really burning issue that I wish that Mr. Burke and the NDC could assist us. Yes, I appreciate the efforts of the frontline workers, the doctors, the nurses. They're overwhelmed. We have a shift that is going from 7 to 7, and they must be applauded. While we work with the COVID people, there are other issues, and one to me that is burning is that of the X-ray machine that was placed at the Princess Alice Hospital. True to the hard-working efforts of former minister in the Gary government, Miss Nydia Benjamin, and the Grenlock. As we speak, something is wrong, and it's on hold for a while. Okay. And that's a disadvantage to the people of Grenville. They have even invested in training a worker to operate that machine. She's now at the General Hospital. Okay. And I do hope they work on that. And please, give us some incubators for our pre-babies. We only have 4 on island. This is not good enough.
All right. Thank you very much.
You see, yes, I mean, there is no easy answer to these issues, caller, but again, it is the same. It takes me back to the same point I was making earlier. Yeah. There are countries that may not be able to give you cash, but may be able to say, we will arrange to get you two X-ray machines. May not be able to give you cash, but we'll be able to say, we will get you some incubators. You know, as I sometimes used to say to my team, begging is a science. You have to know how to beg and who to beg and what to beg who for. Who to beg what, you know? Yes, what to beg each person for, because you don't, if I know, for example, somebody is in the chicken business, yes? They sell chicken in large quantities to the rest of the world, or to the nation. I might go and ask them for cash, or I might go and ask them for a couple cases of chicken. If I ask them for cash, they may say, I have no cash. If I ask them for a few cases of chicken, they can't say, I have no chicken. So I will take the chicken and I will do something with it and sell it and get the cash that I need. So we have to find ways. And that's why I made the point earlier. I think we missed an opportunity at the UN General Assembly. Monies are scarce, but there are people who are willing to give. And many of the Grenadians who are abroad, who are working in the health services industry, who are associated with many of the hospitals up there, they have expressed their commitment and their willingness time and again to help. Many of them are doing a tremendous job helping and shipping things to Grenada. There are many associations out there. There are many ambassadors of Grenada out there. These are the kinds of things that we have to make use of our foreign service personnel to get help, to reach out to the right people and to ask for help. It will not always mean that the government has to dip its hands in its pocket, in a manner of speaking, to get the kind of support that it needs. It means being creative, being innovative, and being able to use the opportunities that are available to us to get some of the things that we need. We empathize with the people of St. Andrew. I want to join you in saying, hopefully, the government can do something about this before very long.
Mr. Burke, we've quickly come to the end of the program this morning. I'd like to thank you very much. It's been a while since we've had you, and I'm happy that you were able to join us this morning for the program. 15 seconds, final thoughts.
Well, I want to, again, wish everyone the very best, a speedy recovery for those who are still ill from the virus, that we as a nation will come together, not be fighting against each other and pointing fingers at this stage, but recognizing that we are facing great challenges, but at the same time, some great opportunities. Let us unite for the greater good of our people. Grenada needs all of us. Let's not be just blaming each other and pointing and trying to beat down each other. Everyone has an idea. Everyone has a role to play. Let's not try to outdo each other to the harm and the detriment of our country. Thank you very much for having me this morning, Blossom.
Appreciate it, and continue to stay safe, and all the best, Mr. Burke. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's the end of To The Point this morning. We'd like to thank Mr. Burke for being our guest, and thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning in. Some programming notes coming up here on Classic 105. We will bring you the ECCB Digital Dialogue, Pandemic and Education. That starts at 10 a.m. And for those of you on GBN TV and the social media, we're going to bring you this morning's post-cabinet briefing, which will be facilitated once again by the Ministry of Health. The acting CMO, Dr. Sean Charles, as well as Dr. Mayana Charles, will be the facilitators according to the notice from the GIS. So stay tuned to GBN platforms, Classic 105, ECCB Dialogues, and our visual platforms. We bring you post-cabinet briefing. I'll be back tomorrow morning, God willing. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Continue to be safe. Observe the protocols. Bye-bye.